Good everybody, it's Batman, and we are going to be checking out another video today. It's going to be by your boy Six. You guys should already know him. He does a lot of Naruto content, you name it. So this is actually a really interesting video. The title really caught my eye and my attention, and it's called Darth Vader versus Obito Uchiha, the real winner. Really interesting. So it's going to be Naruto versus Star Wars, and I don't know jack shit about fucking Star Wars. So I know, like, the basics, intermediates, and stuff like that, but I don't know, like, everything. Like, nowhere near to the amount of knowledge that I have of Naruto. Not at all. Doesn't even compare. I would definitely have to do some research or homework or look into things, you name it, in order to kind of keep up with Star Wars and whatnot, because there's just so much. I mean, the Marvel, DC, Star Wars, you name it, like, there's just so much, dude, Only so much time in the world, and it's hard to keep up, especially when you have a full-time job, you work, you name it, and the whole 9 yards, life don't stop. So, but either way, it's going to be really interesting. Very interesting fight. As we all know, Obito, he has Kamui, fucking crazy-ass hacks ability to where he basically can't be touched, and, Genjutsu, you name it, all that good stuff, the whole 9 yards, and so it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be interesting how he approaches the fight, what conditions he's going to set, and basically, what version of Darth Vader we're talking about as well, because I do know there are many versions of Darth Vader. Like, Legends is probably the most powerful and broken version. I could be wrong, but I believe it is. Then you have, like, the non-Legends one, which is a lot more restrained and nerfed in comparison. So I'm really curious how he's going to do it. It's really interesting how the Force, like, how that would even interact with Kamui, you name it. Like, we know he should still be able to technically move Obito with the Force because, when he's falling down, like, that big-ass waterfall against Konan and, like, all the millions of paper bombs, like, blowing up or going through his body, he's falling and gravity is still being applied while he's using Kamui. So we know gravity still affects him while he's in Kamui. Obviously, he won't be able to, like, crush anything or break anything like that. But, if he's using Kamui, he should still be able to move him around, though. That we do know. So it's really interesting. But let's see how he kind of approaches the fight, what he thinks, and, let's do it.
Who unfortunately turned to the dark side. In Vader's case, literally and figuratively in Obito's. But who would win between these two almost god-tier combatants? This fight and interaction as a whole can become really interesting, not only because of each man's power level, but the extreme similarities in their character arcs as well, which I'll go over in a minute, and their extreme differences. Vader is without a doubt the face of his franchise, with arguably the best character design in history, considering even his breathing is distinguishable. While Obito sort of lacks in this area, he is still an incredibly important character to the Naruto franchise. As you all probably know, when stepping into the area of Crossverse, there is no real way to link these characters to one another in terms of who they've beaten, so using feats is the best way to determine who is stronger. Of course, this means I may have to get into calcs in this video, although I will try to avoid it, but calcs, when they're done the correct way, are the best form of determining the power of a certain feat. Beyond this, we can also link these characters to people they may be strong.
So that I disagree with, not necessarily. So the reason why is because whenever you're trying to do calcs or, basically do certain things or whatever, it depends what you're talking about. Because obviously we know, depending on what's being discussed, whether it's anime, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, you name it, there could be different rules, there could be different factors. It's fiction at the end of the fucking day. So for one, it depends on the variables, because that could also, kind of affect and whether or not if that calc would be able to legitimately actually give you a concrete conclusion of the power level, whatever, blah, blah. And either way, once you even start doing a calc that's technically a fan-made calc, okay, it's not like, it's something being done by the creator of Marvel or Star Wars or whatever you name it. It's not like the actual person that wrote the character Darth Vader is actually like, here you go, here's a calc for this character and this is what he can do. No, they don't do that. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it is a fan-made calc, and guess what? People that are fans of whatever particular subject and material, all because you're making a calc for it, doesn't necessarily mean it's correct or right. You could be wrong. And math is also a very subjective topic to where, like, you can definitely be wrong in math, and it's not 100% of you being correct in math. So there's a lot of room for errors and making mistakes. So either way, like, making a calc for something or something, so it doesn't mean it's 100% competent or actually reliable information. It can actually do the opposite. And I'm not saying calcs can't be useful or maybe help in certain situations. It's a little bit ignorant of me. But there's a certain fine line. There's a lot of gray area with it, though, and a lot of people use calcs to try to rat or, misconstrued or make things be to what they actually aren't. That's all I'm trying to say.
than who may also have performed an impressive feat and apply it to that character. We could also apply multipliers to their power if they are able to be applied, or maybe get a higher speed or AP number. I'm going to be covering Vader as he is portrayed in Disney canon or the current canon, and leaving out any Legends content.
Okay.
We'll go over post-suit Vader, meaning after the events of Revenge of the Sith. And for Obito, I'll talk about him in every form from Yellow Mask to when he became the Jubi Jinchuriki. Aside from Jubito, any other form of Obito's AP will be completely irrelevant due to some things I'll cover later in the Obito section of the video. I want to go ahead and say before the inevitable comments that yes, if you use the movies alone, there are not really that many impressive feats for Vader to compare him to Obito, and he'd likely get speed blitzed just due to that. So to make it a fair fight, I'm going to be using canon novels and comics to get a better understanding of Vader's power. Talking about how the two power systems interact is fairly weird, considering how fundamentally different they are, where chakra is something you have inside of you and is unique to your own person. You can have more or less of it than someone else, and it also matters how you use it to amplify your specific stats. The force is sort of just everywhere, and rather than having more force than another person, you can have a stronger connection to the force, which can be influenced by a number of things on top of your midichlorian count. For the sake of fairness and having both characters have access to their entire kit, we'll say that the force is literally everywhere, like in the Star Wars verse, and any chakra based attacks, or arguably so, attacks like Genjutsu would work on Vader if Obito decides to use it. But before I get directly into the scaling,
that's really interesting because normally it does come to that question. It's like, how does Genjutsu even work? Like, would that really work on the Star Wars universe? There's no way to know, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Unless it actually happens and the two creators decide to be like, hey, let's make a versus battle between someone from Naruto and Star Wars, and how would a Genjutsu work? Oh yeah, it would or it wouldn't. We just don't know. So since we really don't know, technically it shouldn't be used at all, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because it's either it would work or it wouldn't. We just don't know, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Because basically the whole point of Genjutsu is embedding your chakra into the other person and making them see illusions and controlling their chakra flow and you name it. And obviously Vader doesn't have chakra, so that's a little weird. You know what I mean? So I guess, like, to be fair, in an equity sense, like, he's like, all right, well, we'll let Vader have access to the Force, and if that's the case, then we'll allow Obito to do the Genjutsu as well. So if that's really like the stance, and I guess that's fine, whatever, because then again, it's like, would Vader really have the Force in the Naruto-verse? We don't know. You know what I mean? So same thing applies. So if he's doing that, that's fine. I get it. It's whatever. You know what I mean? So that route, but either way, like, to know concretely whether if it would work or not, we just, unfortunately, there's just no way to know that. So it is what it is.
Characters, let's go over their extreme similarities. If you want to get right into the power scaling though, I'll have my editor put a timestamp on the screen for where you should skip to see that, but let's get started. If you've seen both Naruto and Star Wars, you've probably gotten the idea in your head that Obito and Anakin Skywalker, or Darth Vader, have extremely similar stories. I'm not the first person to point this out, and I definitely won't be the last person to point it out.
Alright, so I don't want to really be here for the opinionated personalities or all that, or just, whether if it's facts or not either. I want to be here for the juicy details, so we're going to talk about the stuff that actually really is important. We'll do it here.
Started to make me wonder who would win between them if they were to fight, because they are also similar in
Dropbox capture
one last final way, and that is that they are both extremely powerful. Starting things off with Obito, most of his scaling is fairly simple due to a number of factors, this mainly being his Mangekyo Sharingan ability, Kamui. This ability is extremely broken and it is without a doubt the most deadly jutsu in Obito's arsenal. With this jutsu, Obito can not only teleport and phase through solid matter to avoid all damage, he can do so passively so long as his Mangekyo Sharingan is active, as stated in Databook 4, which reads, the right eye even unconsciously makes a body part slip through by transferring it. And on top of this, he's able to take the people he's making physical contact with.
So one thing I will say as well on that, so yes, that is technically correct. So if he has it active, basically it's, like if he has a Mangekyo active, it's passive, it'll go through whatever, yada yada. It's not like that he has to time it, you know what I mean, to be precise with it, or in order for it to be effective and whoever he's going against. It is done automatically. Now, when he does not have it active, even regardless if he has Mangekyo out or not, okay, there's a point where he'll have to materialize his body, meaning that he's not using Kamui in order to initiate physical contact or to hurt someone. And in order to do that, he has to materialize, and he is invulnerable for a moment. So at that point, it's not passive, okay? Because at that point, he has to actually, like, you know what I mean, like pick and choose. Which is why Minato was able to even tag him to begin with, because when he was like, oh, I win, he's about to touch him. At that point, he's materialized, he's vulnerable to attack. Minato exploited that interval, and he just teleported, bam, and then hit him with the Rising Gun because his body was now tangible. You know what I mean? And it wasn't, you know, intangible to where he would just go right through him. Because if it was always 24/7 passive, then he would have just went right through Obito. But it's not. So if he does turn it off to where he's able to, you know, materialize, you name it, whatever, okay, he does have to turn it back on. So as long as you're able to, you know, exploit that interval and get him before that happens, he will take the hit. I just wanted to kind of make that clarification because a lot of people think he has it on 24/7 even while he's touching someone, you name it, and that's definitely not the case.
Into a separate dimension that has no canon name. Obito and Kakashi just refer to it as their time space, but the fans commonly refer to it as the Kamui dimension. We'll put a pin on that part of the ability for now and just leave it as Obito's first win condition if he's able to pull this off on Vader. Now to get on to the weakness of the jutsu.
So absolutely agree. If Obito can land a Kamui on Darth Vader, that is GG. There's no way Darth Vader is getting out of it. There's no way he could do, you know, whatever. Like, it's unfortunate, that's a GG. You know what I mean? Like, so if he grabs him and he starts sucking him in like he did to Minato from behind when he first, like, meets Minato, okay, and Obito's like, it's over, you know, or whatever. You know, like, unless you argue, like, Vader uses the Force, you know, to grab him while he's doing it, you know what I mean? Because he is vulnerable while sucking someone in as well. So if he uses, like, the Force, you know, then maybe that could be able to stop it from happening. But let's say he completes it and he's successful. There's no way. There's no way Vader is going to be able to get out of that. Once he's in the Kamui dimension, he's done. He's just going to starve to death and he's dead. Unless you think Vader can keep himself alive with the Force or something like that. Like, if that is even a thing. But regardless, he's basically at Obito's mercy and he could just keep him in there forever. So
there are a few. For one, in order for Obito to teleport using this technique, he has to suck himself into the Kamui dimension, which would force him to materialize. The way this was exploited in the battle with Conan was that Conan had paper bombs all around him, so if he materialized, one would just attach to him, and this could be analogous to Vader and his ability to use the Force, since the Force is everywhere throughout the universe. If Obito were to materialize, Vader could sense it via the Force and capitalize during the slow startup speed. But of course, for something like that to be plausible, we'd have to go into the respective speed scaling for each character, which we will do just a little bit later. Another weakness of Kamui is that there is a 5-minute time limit on how long he can be intangible, although this weakness has never been exploited by any of his opponents. Obito's speed is obviously something that needs to be scaled for him to use Kamui non-passively, since it's not all too natural or in character for Obito to just have his MS active during a fight. Although admittedly, a lot of times we see Obito engage with someone in a combat scenario, his eye is covered up by a mask, as stated in Data Book 3, that he intentionally hides the fact that he even has a Sharingan from other members of the Akatsuki. Now this could also potentially mean that Obito covers his eye and constantly has his MS on in case of oncoming attack, and just goes throughout the world off sensory alone. Think of it like Gojo from JJK. Though this is just speculation, and I will admit nothing concretely points to that, and there is only one piece of evidence you could use to support someone even being able to do that, and that is Madara without his eyes prior to Sage Mode seemed to have complete awareness of his surroundings, like where Sasuke shot Amaterasu at him from, kicking away both Naruto and Sai and finding Hashirama. The only reason I wouldn't use this to support the claim for Obito being able to do the same thing is that it's just Madara, and Madara seems to be a weird outlier for a lot of things in the series. Sometimes the normal just straight up doesn't apply to him. So if you want to apply it, go ahead, but this video I just won't be doing that. Kamui also may give you the feeling of landing a hit, even though in reality you didn't actually hit Obito. When Sasuke first encounters Obito and Deidara and attempts to blitz, he plows right through Obito and thinks he landed a hit, saying 1 down, then being surprised whenever Obito actually stands up. The alternate interpretation of this would be that Sasuke blitzed his own nerves. Last would just be that maybe it's something Obito can control, being that he can make it feel like you hit him or make it feel like he's completely unfeelable. Lightspeed scaling in Naruto is a topic I've covered before on my channel, but I'm going to have to touch on it here again inevitably, as much as I don't want to. But we can just work through the different tiers and their relevance, as both Obito and Vader have arguable FTL or FTL plus scaling. Speed of sound is something that's long surpassed in Naruto to the point where it's not even worth mentioning. Getting back during the Chunin exams were throwing around sound attacks, and CM1 Sasuke was overpowering these people to the point where their tools were completely useless. Kakashi was the speed of lightning as a child.
Well, to be fair though, like, all because you're using devices that can, do the speed of sound, you name it, doesn't mean that person's moving at the speed of sound. So I don't know about all that. That's a little weird to kind of gauge the whole moving at the speed of sound and whatnot, and you name it. So I don't know about all that, but either way, yes, there's certain devices that certain characters use, like Dozy, which is sound, you name it. And anytime he ever did the sound or whatnot, basically, fucking it always worked, and you name it, and it caused damage and so on and so forth. So I don't know about all that, but I see what he's saying, but...
That's how the Chidori became the Raikiri, according to Mike Guy, but we know that this is false on his part. While Kakashi did cut lightning with the Raikiri, it's actually a different jutsu from the Chidori, requiring a different amount of hand signs as well as no longer having the 1000 birds chirping sound effect. Then obviously the next relevant tier of speed after lightning is relativistic or light speed, as I mentioned just a few moments ago. Both Obito and Vader can fit into these tiers, so let's just get into how. Since this is a cross-verse battle, I'm obviously going to have to use the best feat possible for the specific character and say that that's where they would be capped out at in terms of a speed tier, or where they could be reliably scaled based on maybe a multiplier.
Fight oil change.
I don't care about you.
Or lack of effort put into said feat. Obito is able to react and activate Kamui in response to an assault attempt by the Raikage, who has a databook statement that he is, depending on the translation, either the speed of light or almost the speed of light. Neither of these matters, as regardless it wouldn't make this a light speed feat for Obito, just due to the amount of distance the Raikage has to travel. And without getting into calc territory, I think it'd be fairly disingenuous to not call this a sub-relativistic to relativistic feat for Obito and his Kamui reactions. However, that is only if you say the Raikage is light speed. I will be honest in saying the Raikage is depicted as being in V1 all throughout this databook page, but the databook passage which says he's light speed or close to it doesn't point to any specific form of him. It just says that while using the lariat, you could rush at light speed or similar to light speed. This could be referring to his max power, that being V2. And another point to bring up is this page is pertaining to the lariat, which he isn't using on Obito here. He's only using a basic punch. We'll apply this speed linearly for all of Obito's forms, Yellow Mask through White Mask, as Obito doesn't perform any feats that would scale above this later on. With the Rinnegan, he should be some arbitrary amount faster, and with the Jubi in him, you could argue he gets a low ball of 10 times faster if you think that Sage Mode / Curse Mark Amp of 10 times applies linearly across all of your stats, and not just your power and reaction speed. I'll get into talking about Jubito's AP in a minute, because I've been talking about Obito for a while now, so let's get into scaling Darth Vader. There are a few feats here for even fodder or mid-tier Jedi that get them sub-relativistic plus through light speed, and possibly even massively faster than light. Starting off kind of light here with these statements. The Revenge of the Sith novel calls Obi-Wan's blade a blue wheel of lightning, which could be said as just figurative for Obi-Wan moving very fast, but if you want to take it as Obi-Wan has lightning speed tier combat speed, I think that's perfectly fine as well, considering other statements that will be brought up later on in the section of this video. As mentioned at the start of the video, calcs will be included when scaling these characters, and this is another one from Obi-Wan during the Clone Wars. In this scene, Obi-Wan reacts to a literal laser beam, at least going solely off of just how they look. I think it'd be pretty disingenuous to say that these lasers aren't laser beams. However, the rest of the calc is completely up to you if you want to accept it, as it does have some eyeballing in it. The beam was fired from around 8 meters away from Kenobi. Assuming the beam is light speed or 299,792,458 meters per second, this gives us a time frame of about this many seconds on screen. I don't feel like reading that. Kenobi is listed as being 1.82 meters tall, which is consistent with both of the original actors Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness's height, which is around 5'10". Knowing this, his arms traveled about 0.3 meters. Using this equation here, the time frame given earlier gives us a speed of around 22,484,434 meters per second, or 7.5% the speed of light, giving us a subrelativistic plus Obi-Wan Kenobi. However, even if you don't want to acknowledge the calc that gives you the conclusion, it is still be true that Obi-Wan can react to light speed from this distance, and fairly casually, I might add. This next feat involves both Anakin and Obi-Wan, which I covered in my video on Obi-Wan Kenobi that just straight up says they have superhuman reflexes to react to spaceships.
The video is like
respectful fraction of the speed of light. Getting into the Kylo Ren versus Vader debate, just for a bit,
audio is being like crazy there.
Involves Kylo Ren. I do believe Vader is stronger than Kylo Ren due to a number of statements, the most blatant among them being from the Book of the Sith, which was released extremely recently. The book is narrated from Palpatine's point of view, in which the Chosen One passage reads, "None in this galaxy has ever proved my equal in the dark side, but in the matter of the Force, there is one bloodline that can't be ignored, the Skywalkers. My most powerful apprentice, Darth Vader, was born a Skywalker. Though his darkness was feared across the galaxy, there remained a lonesome spark of the light that burned within him that he has failed to smother." Obviously, the point that needs to be focused on here in the statement is that Vader is Sidious's strongest apprentice. In the Rise of Skywalker novelization, we learn that Sidious actually considers Kylo Ren his apprentice as well, saying to Kylo, "My boy, I made Snoke. I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head," changing and morphing his voice from Snoke to Vader, then back to Palpatine. "I have been your master all along." This may sound like villain banter, but Kylo actually confirms this earlier on in the novel passage. He says that he recognized Sidious's voice and that he had heard it his whole life. So with Sidious being Kylo's royal master, that makes Kylo in his eyes his apprentice, a category he says Vader is at the top of. The FTO feat from Kylo Ren also comes from the novelization of this movie. Kylo Ren enters light speed on his ship, or hyperspace, and instead of seeing the usual streaming stars of light speed like we always do whenever someone enters it, he sees a glowing red mesh of hexes. The novel says most pilots, while traveling faster than light for a while, use time to stretch, do some interior checks or maintenance, or even sleep, but Kylo didn't let his guard down. What makes this feat FTO is that Kylo Ren is reacting to and piloting this faster than light ship through this maze of debris and not crashing it at all as he navigates through it with extremely close and narrow passages. This feat doesn't even seem all that ridiculous when you consider the fact that Han Solo might also have a massively faster than light feat himself. And yes, I'm talking about Han Solo, a non-force sensitive galactic thug, is able to react to light speed when approaching the Starkiller base planet, saying that the shields surrounding the planet prevent anything moving slower than light from entering, so they would have to make their landing approach at light speed. There is a calc for this that I'll leave linked in the description that puts it somewhere around massively faster than light plus, but
the Neutrogena Hydro Boost.
it is from Legends, but it uses the same logic as the Han feat, so yeah, if you want to take that, there it is. Also, towards the tail end of Rise of the Skywalker, literally everyone has to perform the same feat Kylo did to get past the planet to get to Exegol. So when you really get an entire verse of people, not even force sensitive people, that can react to light speed movement, and like I mentioned earlier, Vader should scale above them all. This next part may be a bit out of place, but I do think I should explain.
So this may sound silly in me. Maybe I'm not understanding or whatever either. It's fine. I don't really care that much. But like, all because a ship is moving at the speed of light doesn't mean you can move at the speed of light. Am I capping on that? Like, that doesn't really make any sense. So for instance, it's like Tony Stark put on an Iron Man suit and that suit can move at the speed of light, but we know Iron Man can't as a human being. So for us to all say that all these people can move at the fucking speed of light, that's a little weird in my opinion. I don't know, I'm just putting that out there. Unless I'm not understanding whatever, but I don't think that's how that works.
Speed travel or hyperspace in Star Wars, since a lot of people seem to think it's just fancy terminology for moving really fast. But no, the Star Wars book confirms these ships are actually moving faster than light when they do this. They say they sort of move so fast that they hop into an alternate dimension, and to do it properly, you need to have a pad set out so you don't crash your ship at the speed of light and unalive yourself and the rest of your crew. That should be all in terms of speed scaling for these two. Obito being around relativistic to a bit into FTL with the Jubi inside of him, if you take the 10 times multiplier like I mentioned earlier, and Vader at FTL consistently due to Kylo Ren scaling, and MFTL at the highest using the calc provided. Now you can't actually get Obito higher than this in his orange mask form if you say that Obito
I appreciate it.
Can between his mirrors, which it is.
Hope yours is good too.
Can go up to possibly the speed of light. However, as I went over in my Lightspeed Naruto video, it doesn't actually tell us the conditions for Haku reaching this speed, so it could be with a mental amp, and I couldn't find anything linking Obito being as fast as Haku can jump between his Lightspeed mirrors, because Haku between his mirrors has absolutely no anti-feats, so it was really hard for me to backtrack. But if you do want to scale it that way, I do acknowledge that you can't do it that way, and then it gets Obito a little bit faster. You could say he's speed of light, and then 10 times faster than the speed of light. So he would be FTL to FTL plus with the Jubi inside of him. Just to keep talking about Vader, since the AP/strength sections of this video are fairly short and simple, let's go over Vader's scaling. As I mentioned in the previous section, Vader should be stronger than the likes of Kylo Ren or any other person I'm about to mention at this point, but let's just start at a simple statement from Vader himself. The power to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force. This is almost as blatant as it gets, as telling the rest of the people in the room that this weapon they built is nothing to be all too proud of, essentially saying that you think this is impressive because you don't know how strong the Force is. This statement is fairly consistent as well. There are a number of statements that call Vader the Emperor's greatest.
So I'm going to be honest, with that statement, that basically at that point all it really boils down is just interpretation, so it's going to be really hard to kind of to go a certain route. When Vader, I do remember that statement, when Vader does state that, basically what he's saying, because in the past, in the history, you name it, there was Sith Lord that could use the Force and destroy planets. There were Sith Lords that could devour all the life force of a planet. There were Sith Lords that could do crazy-ass things with the Force. So yes, the Force can do absolutely monstrous levels of power and feats compared to a device that's created by humans that could destroy a planet. Definitely do agree. Does that make Vader be allowed to do the same exact thing? I don't know about all that. To my knowledge, I don't really know of him being able to use the Force to destroy a whole fucking planet. Never heard of that, but if he can, crazy, I didn't know that, but I don't think he's ever done that. So I wouldn't say this makes him like planetary level or anything like that, or that the Force that he uses could destroy a planet. I don't know about all that, but if that's the direction 6 is going with, like, okay, cool, but you gotta like at least show some feats or something to kind of back that up, because that could just be a figurative of speech, you know, basically him saying, you know, or better yet, just like going based off, you know, the history and lore and with the Sith in general of all the stuff that was done in the past, or all the myths and legends, you name it. So if that's the case, and he's just going off, you know, basically what he knows knowledge-wise, you name it, and things like that, you know, doesn't mean necessarily he has that power. If Darth Vader had that power, or even Palpatine, Darth Sidious, they would have done it. They would have destroyed planets with the Force, but they didn't because they couldn't. So
weapon, or the greatest weapon to the dark side. And just to name a few, we have the summary of Star Wars Vader Dark Visions, saying Vader is the ultimate symbol of power and fear. The Star Wars Age of Rebellion passage also says something extremely similar. Darth Vader is the ultimate weapon of the Empire. Then yet another from Rebels Confidential, saying Vader is the ultimate instrument of the dark side. That's enough to get Vader to basic planet.
Okay, so yeah, that's the direction he was going. So yeah, now that doesn't prove anything. That doesn't show anything. It definitely doesn't concretely show that Vader is planetary. Those are all statements that are basically saying, yeah, Vader is that guy to send to hunt Jedi, to kill people, you name it, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't mean Vader is planetary level. So if you can't show a statement that says, oh, Vader is planetary, or show any feats that he's planetary, I don't give a fuck. For instance, it's like saying Spider-Man's planetary level because of what we just read, like statements, whatever, yada yada, or Spider-Man's like, oh, well, that weapon's nothing compared to, you know, I don't know, my Spidey powers or whatever, blah blah, like, you know, for whatever reason, yada yada, and then you're like, oh, therefore that makes Spider-Man planetary. If Spider-Man doesn't have any feats to be planetary, you can't say he's planetary. If there's not even statements to say that he's planetary, you can't say he's planetary. That's not how that works. Okay, that's like subjective reasoning or subjective arguments, or some type of argument to wank a character when you have no actual proof of it. So, like, no, you can't do that. It doesn't prove he's planetary. I'm just being real. From the evidence that he demonstrated, I'm not saying Darth Vader isn't, But from what he just showed, that does not prove that he's planetary. That's the stupidest shit I've ever seen and heard in my life. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to keep it real in a book. That doesn't make any fucking sense. So, but yeah, just be real. Like, for instance, like, Goku's a prime example. Definitely planetary. You know what I mean? The Dragon Ball Z, you name it. Like, we're seeing these motherfuckers destroying planets, or galaxies, you name it. So, like, yeah, you can conclude what they can do. But, like, let's say they didn't have any of those feats, and they had only certain very vague statements that can literally be implied in many directions of what it's either meaning or what it's for, and you name it. Like, that doesn't prove that, therefore, that character is now planetary. Like, no, that's not how that works.
But let's take this a step further, since all the statements say Vader is stronger than the Death Star. How strong is the Death Star? Luckily, we get to see a display of the weapon's power when it wipes Leia's homeworld of Alderaan off the map, which I'll leave this calc link in the description. It puts this feat for the Death Star around Dwarf Star level. But is this where Vader caps at? Not even. We can take this a step further when the First Order emerges in Star Wars Episode 7. We get to see their new Death Star-like doomsday device known as the Starkiller Base, and I'm sure you can tell from the name where I'm going with this, but just hear me out. According to the Resistance, this weapon is charged off a sun-like star. This is obviously going to get into calc territory, but once again I'll leave it linked in the description. But it gets to the conclusion that a shot from this base would have large star levels of power, saying that a shot from Starkiller Base would have around 4.35 FOE in terms of energy. You need less than 1 FOE of energy to be large star level, around 760 tentatons, or 3.182 times 10 to the 42 joules of energy, and Starkiller is outputting over 4 times these requirements. To get Vader to this scale, we're going to have to bring it back to Kylo Ren. The Star Wars book, that's the actual name of the book, says, freed from pressure to live up to the Skywalker name, Ben takes on the moniker Kylo Ren and is given the new unrestrained purpose as the ultimate weapon of Snoke in the First Order. The destruction and loss of life caused by Kylo is matched only by the terrible legacy of his grandfather in the dark side, Darth Vader, giving Kylo deadly justification. This statement is almost as blatant as it gets, so I won't go too much further into detail here. Even if you think Kylo Ren is stronger than Vader, this just says they are both stronger than the Starkiller Base. But let's move on to
Where did it say that? See, that's what I'm not understanding with 6. You can't just make assumptions or make up shit. Where did it say Darth Vader or fucking I already forgot it. Kylo Ren is stronger than this? It never said that. Like, what? Like, you're taking statements of these characters to be hyped up as some evil entity, force, whatever, yada yada, you name it, and then bringing up like these fucking crazy, destructive, crazy devices, okay, and then saying, oh, therefore it's connected to these two, blah blah, in comparison, blah blah, and there you go. Now they scale to each other. Like, huh? Like, what the fuck does that? Like, bro, like, he's literally just making up shit right now. Like, I'm sorry, but like, for how long he took to make this video, like, all the arguments that he's done so far, he's looked at certain statements that are being said that are very vague, and you have no idea what it's being technically, you know, indicated for or whatever, and just basically up to interpretation based on whatever you know previously, afterwards, you name it. And then he's like, oh yeah, therefore it applies to this and this and this and this, and therefore he has the same level of power. Like, no, if you can't give a statement that says he is, or show feats that he could do that, that's not how that works. like, what kind of fucking universe does this man live in? Like, I'm sorry, but like, that is like fucking horrible. Like, he's not concretely proven anything. Everything he's saying is all fucking like subjective or hypotheticals, basically, in a sense. Like, that doesn't prove anything. Like, that's just stupid.
Toes AP as the GBG Cherokee.
So far, this video has been ass. I could probably watch a whole other YouTube video and it'd be fucking god tier. Like, oh my god. Like, this video has been ass so far.
A separate time space, like I mentioned earlier. When it comes to Obito, there are a few ways to go about this. In Data Book 3, it stated half of Kurama can easily turn the world to ash. I do not interpret this as Kurama being planetary, just that he can destroy all of society. But if you want to take it that way of him being planet level, then it gets really simple from there. Him plus or times all the Biju combined into the ghetto.
So, when we look at the Nine Tails, when he shoots like a big ass fucking tail beast bomb, it like destroys mountains, devours them, you name it. But it's not actually like destroying the whole planet or anything like that. It's not doing anything like to fucking like the whole world is not shaking when the Nine Tails is doing shit. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's emphasizing like the whole fucking world can feel the wrath of the Nine Tails. It's clearly figurative. It's a hyperbole. It's so if you're taking a hyperliteral and actually believe, it's stupid. Planetary power level isn't really being applied until once Naruto and Sasuke get 6 pass level of power and chakra. So if you want to like maybe highball Obito and say when he's the Jubito that now he has like planetary level, whatever, sure, whatever, I don't care. But just the Nine Tails power alone is not planetary level. Like if he if he were to like launch up like a big ass tail beast bomb, like put his like all his chakra into it and just shoot a big explosion, yeah, it's probably gonna do a very, very big explosion, but not enough to destroy the fucking planet. I just don't see that. You know what I mean? And I or if anything, if you really want to take that statement literal, maybe what it's saying is like if the Nine Tails was just start spamming tail beast bombs everywhere, that the whole world would just turn into ash or whatever. You know what I mean? So like I don't know, like however you want to take it, but I don't know about all that. Like I said, you can't really definitively prove that the Nine Tails is absolutely planetary level. It's not really shown. You know what I mean? It's not emphasized. There's no message to really indicate that. Like I said, we don't really see planetary feats until we're getting into 6 path, a level of power, Boruto scaling and things like that. Even the video games kind of show that as well. You know what I mean? So
that you make the Jubi. And since the Jubi is pure nature energy, you should be able to multiply this similar to Sage Mode, which being a Jubi Jinchuriki actually puts you into, stated by Madara. With this, you get an unquantifiably above 10 times greater than planet level Jubi Obito, obviously far below Darth Vader's level of AP. The other way to take this is saying Obito is universal because of the 4th databook statement of the Jubi created in the universe. This statement is really weirdly interpreted, but the statement reads a fragment of the God tree that gave birth to the universe, the 10 Tails. The first way to interpret this is saying that the 10 Tails did this. However, the other way to interpret it is saying that the 10 Tails is part of the larger fragment of the God tree, and the God tree is what had created the universe, implying there is this one big God.
Wait, come on, let's go.
From however many years ago that created this 10 Tails. This is fairly in line with the canon, as we do get a statement in Boruto that 10 Tails are just seedlings, so I personally see nothing wrong with this interpretation. But like I said, you can't really determine either way, and it is being fairly generous saying the whole seedling concept was a thing in Naruto Part 2 when this data book was established. The other counter to this argument would be that Obito obviously doesn't have complete mastery over the Jubi, the same way that Madara does, as well as not having a complete one. Obito, as everyone knows, was missing the 9 Tails and 8 Tails from his Jubi, and he did not connect with it on the same level Madara did, considering both of their different outcomes when becoming a Jubi Jinchuriki, as well as Obito was never able to fully manifest the third eye on his forehead. I don't have the time nor energy to go through every bad translation of every Naruto scan from a data book, so I chose these two since they're the main ones everyone uses, and some of them just straight up wouldn't matter in the case of Jubi Obito. So to quickly wrap up AP, we have Darth Vader consistently somewhere around dwarf star to large star level, which is in line with his statement of being able to destroy a planet being insignificant next to the power of the Force. Then we have Obito, who is not really concretely placed anywhere, but can be from planet level to universal. And I think planet level is fair, so we'll go with that one because it's not even like it matters to Vader anyway. Vader is way stronger. But if you do think Obito is universal and the universal statements apply to this form of him, then obviously he would beat down Vader. GG, you can stop watching the video. For durability, this will be extremely brief. We'll assume durability equals AP for the forms of Obito that we didn't scale the AP of. We just know that he's much weaker than he is here. So if Vader can land a hit on Obito or grab him with the Force, Obito is most likely done for. However, the same is true for Obito considering his basically one-shot ability. Keep in mind though, Obito's possession of Hashirama cells, this essentially means Vader is going to have to work extra hard to actually put Obito down, since he can practically regenerate from any fatal attack. Crushing his throat with the Force or even his heart isn't going to put Obito down. I'm not even sure if snapping his neck would work, to be honest. He's going to have to be cut completely in half or something brutal along those lines like decapitation. Luckily, all these are tactics.
Obito gets his neck broken, that motherfucker is done. Shut the fuck up. Like, no, that's not how that works. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. Again, like, like Obito was able to move without a heart for like, you know what I mean, like some seconds, you know what I mean, through willpower alone, and was somehow fucking alive, like operating his brain and some shit, and then turn into the Ten Tails. But the motherfucker was going to die, dude. Like literally when he comes out of the comedy dimension, like Madara's like, oh well, he's not of no use to me now. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to hear that shit. If Darth Vader gets the Force, breaks his neck, whatever you name it, or blows up his fucking body, he's dead. Okay.
Character and other people in the Star Wars universe. Take note of when Vader is actually force choking someone. He tends to use 2 fingers, less than 2 fingers, or not use his hand at all. In Rogue One, we see Vader use 2 fingers on Director Krennic during their meeting, but when he's fighting the rebels in the hallway scene, Vader starts to choke and clenches his hand fully, showing he likely crushed this guy's throat. Which, like I said, is not something that's going to put Obito down, though it may disorient him for a bit, giving Vader time to do a decapitation, or something like Mace Windu versus Jango Fett, or maybe like Darkseid Anakin versus Dooku, where he did just straight up cut his head off. Now to get into some of Vader's abilities. While Vader is primarily a lightsaber combatant and most of the time leans on those skills in a fight, he still displays a lot of basic and advanced Force abilities like Force Sense, Dark Rage, or Dark Side Force Augmentation, Telekinesis, and even Telepathy. Even recently in the Obi-Wan show, we've seen Vader take on Reva and be winning without using a lightsaber at all. This is consistent with his master Darth Sidious or Emperor Palpatine, who prefers not to use lightsabers in combat and likes to rely on his dark side powers to win a fight. Although Vader does eventually defeat Reva via lightsaber, it's not his own, it's Reva's lightsaber just to humiliate her. Force Sense is the result of being able to tap into the Force. This allows a Force wielder to sense their surroundings, the presence or emotions of others, and even events of the future. Obi-Wan in episode 4 even indicates that being in tune with the Force allows you to react to attacks automatically, even if they'd normally be faster than you. There are also numerous examples of this throughout the franchise, like Obi-Wan being able to keep up with and respond to General Grievous, who is characterized as being much faster than him, as well as many others. More advanced Force wielders like Grandmaster Yoda and Darth Sidious can use abilities on a galactic scale, being able to sense entire shifts in the balance of the Force, or being able to discern current events happening planets.
That is true.
Basically, being in tune with the Force is like Sage Mode for Naruto on steroids. Vader is also very adept in Dark Rage. The ability the Sith use to channel their emotions is fuel for power in combat. Combined with his basic connection to the Force, these abilities allow Vader to fight at superhuman speeds and easily perceive any enemies as threats around him. Vader also displays more advanced usage of the Force, especially with telepathy. Using the Force, Vader can invade a target's mind, read it like a book, or induce so much fear and pain that they pass out. And his presence alone has been known to make people feel physically cold. Vader can also use the Force to reinforce and protect his mind from any illusions or attempts of manipulation, and even if indicated in some sources that they are trying to do so, leaves an opponent's mind vulnerable and exposed to Vader. This means Vader could easily prevent or break any genjutsu that Obito would try to put him in, and even potentially retaliate if Obito tries it in the first place. It also should be noted that while Vader isn't blind, his eyes were burned out after Mustafar, and he sees through infrared reflections generated by his helmet lenses, which he bolsters with the Force. So Obito has no way to establish eye contact or stream chakra into his eyes. Like many other users, Vader also uses many different applications of telekinesis.
Now, to be fair, even if you take that away, Obito could still technically cast Genjutsu on multiple people. He's done it before. He actually did it against Tachi's squad and a whole platoon of Anbu, and Kakashi. So he doesn't have to look in your eyes to cast Genjutsu on you, but we all should know that already.
Like force pushes or pulls, force chokes and crushes, and even pyrokinesis and limited energy deflection. With his telekinesis, Vader can lift or throw around objects or enemies, even ones much larger than himself like spaceships and land masses. Vader can also use the Force to
Introducing the York.
So many
choke his enemies, one of his favorite abilities, which he can even use on the verge of death without his helmet, and even tear apart objects with the Force like he does to some droids in the comics. Vader can also use Force Wave, an even more powerful ability that can be used to disintegrate enemies. Vader is also skilled with defensive applications of telekinesis, not only being capable of blocking or displacing attacks with telekinetic barriers, but he can also use this ability.
You know what's funny? Darth Vader is basically very similar to Pain. You know what I mean? In Nagato, like, Remember like Pain kind of doing that against like V2 Naruto, where he's just like using barriers and shit. Like basically, like what Vader does is basically what Pain and Nagato does. So kind of picture like Obito going against like Pain or Nagato with the Rinnegan ability of like Shinra Tensei or Universal Pull and shit. It's basically the same shit. I mean, and then like when Kakashi also talks about and explains it, you know, the laws of attraction, you name it, in the whole 9 yards, like that's all it is. The only difference is Nagato, he has an interval when he does it and whatnot, or there's a certain point where he could just spam it. Like, well, not really spam it, but like spam like a protective barrier that he can do consistently. He doesn't have to wait or anything, but either way, the main difference is Vader can do all of it 24/7. There's no time interval, there's no nothing. So it's like Obito going against like Nagato or Pain, but with like infinite Shinra Tensei or fucking Pool or, you know, whatever. Basically, like shit, the title of the video, like Obito versus Star Wars Nagato or Star Wars Pain.
He got fired. This will let him counter any fire style that Obito may use. He can also use Tutaminas to a limited degree to block energy-based attacks like blaster bolts. So ultimately, Darth Vader has a wide arsenal with his force abilities that can be used in any fight. Obviously, a lot of these abilities wouldn't help him against Obito's Kamui ability. For that, he's going to have to go for something more like a force choke, like I mentioned earlier, to disorient Obito, and then maybe get a hit on him with his lightsaber to actually get Obito out of the fight for good. But all in all, you have Obito scaling to around faster than light plus with the
you want to know my win con for Darth Vader? He literally uses the Force on Obito. Like, he'll start using the saber, right? And he's like cutting through and he can't do anything, and Obito's like making fun of him or whatever. And he's like, you know what? Fuck you. Force, he realizes he can't hurt him, but he can still move him around. And he'll just throw him all the way in space, and then Obito dies. Actually, because even if he did throw him all the way in space, or like all the way high enough to where he could start freezing in the sky, you know, like temperatures, I'm pretty sure Obito could then just use, common like his transportation technique, and then, you know, just go. Unless you think he would immediately die once he hit space, then whatever. But if you don't think he would immediately die, then he could just use Kamui teleport and then get back to Earth. But I don't know, that would just be funny. Like, if you think that would work to beat him, then whatever. But, you know, or if like Vader just grabs him and just like fucking slams, like, or just like sends him all the way down to like the lava core of planet Earth and fucking, you know what I mean, whatever. Like, now obviously nothing's gonna happen because Obito's just gonna be phasing through everything. But like, that's the funny thing about it. It's like Darth Vader can literally just move him wherever the fuck he wants.
Of him, but with the Jubi inside of him, Obito doesn't have nearly enough AP to be able to take Vader down. So that one is more than likely a Vader W, even if you do say that they are relative because of the faster than light scaling, or Vader's even higher because of the massively faster than light scaling. Then in Orange Mask, if you say they're around relative, you more than likely get an Obito W out of that, unless he tries to use Genjutsu or something, which I did mention earlier Vader can retaliate against. But if you go with the higher scaling for Vader, like Massively Faster Than Light Plus, he's more than likely just going to completely speed blitz Obito and put him down before Obito can even blink or think about that happening. That's also, like I said, only if you accept the fact that Obito scales above Bahaku going through his mirrors, which, like I said, I couldn't find any proof for. So it's really just kind of an up to you thing if you think that you want to accept something like that. But like I said, we can't really prove it either way. Anyway, I know it took me like 8 months to get this video out. Sorry about that. But if you did enjoy it, which I hope you did, obviously leave a like on the video and subscribe as well. The next video like this will be Naruto versus Saitama. But as always,
all right. So it was pretty good. Like, I'm gonna be honest. There were certain parts here where it was kind of like annoying me because he was kind of just basically pulling up certain statements and then just like therefore this, but not really actually showing concrete evidence to prove what he's saying. So it's whatever, you know what I mean? I see the dots and that he connected and how he went about it, whatever. Like, it is what it is. Like, in a debate sense, maybe that could work, whatever. But like in an actual like scaling type video, you name it, like that's just, I don't know. So like all of that I wasn't really a big fan of because he wasn't concretely proving anything of what they could actually do. He was kind of just, you know, coming to certain conclusions based on certain statements and just giving his interpretation of those statements and therefore scaling a character to a miraculous level of power. That's basically what he did throughout. But when he got towards like, you know, durability, abilities, and then like towards the end of it, I would say that's when it was like kind of getting pretty cool and interesting, and it kind of made up for it. So it was a really good video. Really good video. It could have been a lot better in my opinion, but it's fine. It is what it is. You know what I mean? What's called? I'm pretty sure if I would have typed Darth Vader versus Naruto, or I don't know, something like that, like you probably won't find that much anyways. I don't think you would, but yeah. But either way, the concept of it, the topic, you know, what he did present, everything, you name it, it was all great. I loved it, so I will leave a like. But it was a good video. Good video. Definitely a good video. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Any ideas of like Naruto versus Star Wars? You know what I mean? What did you think on that fight? Who would actually win? You know, your thoughts overall, how his takes, his thoughts, and you name it. Yeah, that's basically it. Make sure you leave a like on this video as well. Subscribe for more content. Subscribe to the channel.